Today's episode of Beyond the Mask is presented by the insurance specialists at Bright Think Wealth Strategies. Find the disability insurance coverage that fits you best right now. Email Robert Smith at rsmithjr@financialguide.com. The show is also made possible by the team at CRNA Financial Planning. Get a free consultation today to be guided through the complexities of investing and financial planning. Just visit crnafinancialplanning.com. We'd also like to thank Helping Hands and OSA EMR for their support of the show. And don't forget, listening to our podcast can earn you Class B credits. For more information on how you can submit them, check out the CE Credit tab on our website, beyondthemaskpodcast.com. Welcome to Beyond the Mask, Innovation and Opportunities for CRNAs, with Jeremy Stanley and Sharon Pierce. We know you spend your day caring for your patient's best interests. On our show, we want to care for you. Join us as we leave the operating room and learn the latest in the CRNA industry. Beyond the Mask starts in 10, 9, 8, 7.
Welcome to Beyond the Mask. I'm Jeremy Stanley, and I've been working with CRNAs for over 23 years, and I'm married to one. And my co-host is
Sharon Pierce.
Sharon's a practicing CRNA for over 20 years, a past president of the AANA, the NCANA, and she's held many other leadership roles. As usual, our goal with every episode is to educate and enlighten CRNAs, and I think our topic today is definitely going to do that. And Sharon, what time is it?
It's time to wake up, Jeremy.
I think it is. Well, hello, Sharon. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm good. Busy day, running around a little bit, but that's good. We won't say that is a bad thing.
Well, it could be a bad thing because the market's been going crazy, and I'm sure your phones have been going crazy too, right?
It's been an interesting 5 months, let's put it that way, for sure. But a little bit of reprieve in the last week or so, which has been good. But this too shall pass.
Yeah, you still got the alcohol in the drawer in your desk in your office.
Only if needed. I have had a lot of people call and say, "Is it time to jump out the window yet?" I'm like, "Not quite. We're still good. Okay, we're still good.
We're still in an election year. There's hope."
That's right. Well, Sharon, we have got a wonderful show lined up today. Actually, this show came from you doing the IFNA meeting and being there and making a contact. So I'm gonna maybe let you introduce a little bit about how this came about and introduce our guest today.
Okay, I will do that. Well, a little bit of background. Of course, I was at the IFNA meeting, and Tracy Castleman was with me when I heard our guest give his lecture. And we walk out, and we were both just amazed by the story that he had related during his lecture. So I saw him walking. I was sitting with a bunch of people at the bar. And I saw him walking through, and I stopped and told him how much I enjoyed his lecture and everything. Well, after I sat back down with Tracy, she said, "Why didn't you ask him to be on the podcast?" I said, "That's crazy. I should have." So the next time I saw him, I approached him again. I said, "I swear I'm not stalking you, but I would really love to get you on our podcast." And he so graciously accepted the invitation to do that. So without further ado, I'm going to and it's Olaf Jacobsen. Did I say that correctly? Okay, good. Olaf Jacobsen from Norway. And I'm going to just let you tell a little bit about yourself and your background, and then we will talk a little bit about how you kept all of us riveted to our seats in Croatia. So, Olaf?
Yes, hello. I'm a nurse anesthetist, and I've been that for 42 years almost. And working at the University Hospital of North Norway, the most northern university in the globe. So I also work as a flight nurse, and I've been working as a university teacher in the nurse anesthetist program. So that's a little about me.
Yeah. So you also work as a first responder, correct?
I mean, when you use the term first responder, it's not a work. In this situation, the first responder expression was that I was the first responder. But I also have a part in the Red Cross search and rescue group. So you can say I work as a first responder, but not in the common sense in US.
Hmm. Well, it sounds like you've got your hands in a lot of pies, as we say here in the United States. So why don't you give us some background? Start the story out the way you did the day when I heard your lecture.
Story is that I went biking home from work, about 7 kilometers from the university hospital. It was a chilly afternoon, dark as it is in December here, no sun. It was a windy, little wet snow, slush, not very bad winter weather, no blizzard or something, but it's a chilly afternoon. And then I just biked past a baby pram at the cycling and walking path. And I just started thinking about what is this, starting worrying. I stopped, I went back, and I examined the baby pram. There were no baby there. It was a natural place. Nobody would leave the pram there, like perhaps somebody would do at the parking place or something like that. And then I saw 3 passports in the basket under the pram, and I saw it was a pile of snow, like when they've been cleaning the road for snow and cleaning the cycle path. It was a half a meter of slush snow. And then I saw these footprints in the snow leading to the coast, to the shore. And then I started worrying about the situation. I got in contact with a lady who stopped and asked her to help me. And we went down to the shore, following the footprints in the wet slush snow. In fact, avoiding walking in the footprints for some reason. And then I saw the footprints going into the water. At that time, I had my suspicion that something really bad had been going on. And I called the police at 112 rather than calling the health service at 113 in Norway, because I thought this was an unsafe situation. Mm-hmm. And then we shared the work. I did go by the shore for some 100 meters to the one side and the lady to the other, while I was talking with the police. So that was the start of it all.
So here you are, you find this, and you call it a pram, but we call it like a baby carriage or Sharon.
Yes.
Yes. So, and obviously doesn't look, like something that should be happening. And you took it on yourself to kind of investigate this a little further. You call the police, and it's cold, obviously, because there's snow. What was the temperature?
I think it was just below 0, so not that very cold, but wet and a little windy and a little hail in the face. So it was quite chilly, but not Alaska cold or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's dark, so
yes,
you have a headlamp or something that you
I had a small headlight used for biking, and at the roadside there were some lights, but at the shore there were no lights.
Yeah, and it was windy. I think.
Yes, windy. Yeah,
windy. Yeah. So and you read the passports, and then what happens next?
While I was talking to the police, who is also a rescue center in Norway, the police is the rescue centers, and they are leading a rescue situation rather than the fire brigade. So they have a double role, or possibly we say that. And then I went back and read the names. But at that time, they have alarmed the ambulances, the hospital, the fire brigade, and all the other resources. There were a lot of other resources coming out. So while I was talking still to the police, going back to the pram and reading the passports, I heard the sirens and I saw the blue lights in the corner of my eyes.
Mm. Wow. So the police get there, and what are kind of their thoughts? What happens at that moment?
I did guide them. I received them. I met them, and I guided them to the seashore. They had this very strong, powerful lights, as you have seen perhaps in your places. And they went also down to the shore, also avoiding the footprints, possibly thinking about not destroying evidence, we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And then they went down and they waded out into the sea, like some 10, some 20, some 30 meters in the cold water, not very deep. And then they found 3 persons and brought them up, shouting that they have been doing findings and shouting to each other, start CPR. And then I heard that and went down and started CPR on the smallest child, the one who survived.
So kind of the persons, who was it? Was it a mother and father and a child? How old were these folks?
At the time we didn't know, but it was a mother and 3 childs.
Okay.
1 baby, 1.5 year, and 2 older childs in school age.
Mm.
So no father there.
Okay.
And at the time we didn't know that there was 4 persons. We found 3 first.
Okay.
And you started helping work on the infant.
Yes, on the infant, together with a police student and later with an experienced police woman. And I was thinking, I can manage airways as an anesthetist. So I did the rescue breathing. I mean, everybody who have been in anesthesia for some weeks, they know that every week we have problem with airways or some challenges at least. Mm-hmm. So I did the airway rescue breathing, and I was thinking, should we use 215 rescue breathing and compressions, or should we use 230 as we do for adults? And of course, I thought it was a small child.
Mm-hmm. Now, in retrospect, did you ever figure out how long they had been in the water? I'm sure they were pretty cold.
Yes, it was really cold, but I did. We have there have been an investigation, there have been reports and so on. So now we know that they have been in water for, let's say, an hour or more than that.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Oh, my goodness. Now, whenever I heard you speak, you said that they let the hospital, you had been working that day, and you said that you got to leave early.
Yes.
So the whole thing was fairly fortuitous that you had seen the pram. You said you're glad you left early, I guess, but yet you find yourself in this situation because you did leave work early. And you called back to the hospital, and you knew that you were going to need ECMO for the patients that were coming in, and you went with them to the hospital once they got everybody mobilized and ready to go back to the hospital?
Yes, when the first ambulance came, there were a lot of ambulances where anesthesia doctors were paramedics, so there were ambulances enough and personnel enough. And of course, we all thought about needing ECMO, but we didn't know at the start how many persons it was. But we got up the 3 first, we know about them, and we didn't know about the 4th person we found later. And the Emergency Medical Coordination Center, together with the rest of the hospital, they, of course, was thinking about preparing ECMO for these 3 persons and later for the 4th. I was working on the smallest child and the infant, and then I went with one ambulance together with a paramedic, and I was doing ventilation during the transport to the hospital. The transport takes about 7 minutes or a little more than that, and I went all the way into the operation theater where they had prepared an ECMO for our infant, and the other 2 persons that had been found at that time went into other ambulances with other personnel.
Have you thought about what would happen if you weren't able to work for 2 or 3 years? You know, on average, 25% of people will file a disability claim, and most of us aren't prepared for that loss of income. Every CRNA needs to protect their biggest asset, yourself, and your ability to earn with a disability insurance policy. We recommend contacting Robert Smith. a master disability insurance specialist with more than 30 years of experience and 1,800 CRNA clients to find the coverage that fits you best. The best way to do that is to send him an email at rsmithjr@financialguide.com. That's rsmithjr@financialguide.com. Or call him at 504-394-6557.
Now, let me ask you kind of a different kind of question. You said there were anesthesia doctors on the ambulance that came out. Do they ride on the ambulance?
We have from the major hospitals, we have anesthesia doctors and rescue men or women that are working at the ambulance helicopter. They also have a car for rendezvous with ambulances in the closest area. So therefore, there were also doctors coming out, but mostly it was paramedics in the ambulances. That was a main situation. So
it wasn't just this situation that they come out for. They come out. This just fascinates me because physicians do not come out in the field in the United States. It's all paramedics.
Yes, I read about that and heard about that. Yeah. So we had all the competence, all the personnel we needed quite quickly out there, just some 5, 6, 7 minutes after I called.
Oh, wow. That's very quick.
And then I also, for our little infant, I was thinking about which advanced measures should we do out there. Of course, it was securing the airway with an oropharyngeal tube and a ventilation bag. That was a basic. And then doing CPR, a little more effective with oxygen at the time we went into the ambulance. And we also was thinking about having an AED, a defibrillator, and we didn't expect any shockable rhythm, but we put it on, and we put it on with the infant pads in the ambulance. And if this has been the only patient, we would have put in an orotracheal tube, endotracheal tube at the scene in the ambulance. But because it was a short time to the hospital, and because we had many patients, we didn't do that. We went on just doing advanced CPR with an oropharyngeal tube and a ventilation bag and an AED and manual compressions.
So did it have any rhythm at all?
In the ambulance, we had an advanced core pulse AED, or that could be used manual also. Then we could see it was just a flat line. As expected.
Sure. Now, you are obviously, I'm sure you've dealt with drownings, cold water drownings being like at the gateway to the Arctic. This is probably not the first time that you've been involved with, or there's been drownings, cold water drownings.
No, it's not the first time. I've been working at all the chain of survival, the medical or the trauma chain of survival. I've been like a first aid person outside, and also working in ambulance helicopter as a rescue man, and also still working as a flight nurse. And I've been working in the hospital, of course. So we have regularly somebody been drowning in water, and some like this been drowning in real cold water, and possibly not been drowning, but being hypothermic before they stopped breathing, before the heart stopped. So we had, I've been participated in 2 of the world records. One of the lowest temperature with a person called Anna that has been interviewed in CNN last year of the doctor there. This record had been beaten by the Polish last year. And we also had this longest time to the return of spontaneous circulation, but that also had been beaten by the Swiss persons in Geneva. So I've been working with this regularly in all parts of the chain of survival. As you also, if you come to a situation when the person is unconscious or have a heart attack, you know that where we come into a situation can be all places in the chain of survival. can be very different situation, but also can be very, very different where we come into the situation.
So what are some things that people should keep in mind? I've never been involved in a drowning situation. So what, especially hypothermic, what are things that run through your mind besides the obvious, the ABC, airway, all of that kind of thing? Anything else that you have to think of that you would like to share with our listeners that may not have ever done this before?
I think there's one main thing is if a person is unconscious, being in the cold water, a river or at the sea or wherever, or just out in the cold rain, then you should think that there is a chance of rescue this person, even if the person has been there for a little while, as I understood or thought I understood in this situation. So give the person a chance. I think that's one thing. And many authors say that no one is dead before is warm and dead.
Oh,
so if it's hypothermia, give the person a little time.
Right. Well, it's been, and I didn't look this up, but I had read an article a number of years ago about the mammalian reflex, which is why some people will survive after a long time in hypothermic waters, and some people have retained that reflex and it hasn't evolved out. Now it's the last thing I read, I think it was like 5% of people have that reflex, and that's what happens. They basically shut down whenever they get hypothermic. But I don't know, you probably know a little bit more about that than I do. It's been a long time since I read about that.
I mean, that's one thing that can give the person time. If you think about like this Polish toddler that had been rescued, walking out in the pajamas in the cold area just recently, and his heart stopped, he stopped breathing, and they started CPR and went into a big hospital and started ECMO. So I mean, then I guess it wouldn't have been that type of reflex. It was just a general hypothermia going down, and at some times the person got unconscious, and at some time the breathing and the heart stopped. And of course, that children, small children, they have more chances of a good outcome.
Olaf, how old was the child at the time?
1.5 years. So
1.5 years.
I mean, we didn't talk about if it was should be treated like a child or an infant, but we just intuitively treated the person as an infant with 15-2 compression and breathing. So 1.5 years.
Beyond the Mask is made possible by the team at CRNA Financial Planning. With almost 2 decades of experience, the firm guides CRNAs through the complexities of investing and financial planning. Schedule a free consultation today by calling 855-304-3748 or go online to crnafinancialplanning.com.
So you're in the ambulance, you rode with this child to the hospital. What happens when you get to the hospital with the child?
We do have a procedure, a protocol that I've been aware of because I've been working with this kind. And this says that we should go right to the thoracic operation theater where we should be received. And then they would consider if this person would be put on an ECMO. So the team received us at the operation theater. So I went all the way there, and the anesthesiologist and my colleague and an operation nurse theater received me, and all these thoracic surgeons, they also came into the theater. So I was received by a team there, and the whole situation was led by my colleague Tommy, who was a coordinator, and the anesthesia Dr. Bård, who was with him. So it was pretty clear for everybody that we should consider rewarming these 3 persons, and later the 4th was found some 10, 15 minutes later.
So there were 3 children. One is 1.5. Did you ever get the ages of the other 2 children?
I was not involved directly, but since I stayed at the hospital helping with other emergencies that evening, because I had this workload of these 4 ECMO patients, then I was just in the periphery of the others.
So there are 3 children, and you find out later that it's the mother of the 3 children.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
of the 4. And the only one that survived is this infant that you started working on first. How old is that child now? How long ago was it?
She's 3.5 years old now, I think.
3.5.
Okay, so it was 2 years ago.
Yeah. Little more than 2 years ago. Yeah. This was 3 months before the corona started in Norway, the corona shutdown.
Olaf, do you know what happened, the reasoning behind? Is there any, what was the mother doing? I mean, was this on purpose that this happened?
I understand that there is, I have read part of there is an official report on this, an official investigation in addition to the police investigation, and there I think they conclude with that it was a depression. She was depressed. She was not thinking clearly, and she did bring her 3 children into the water for some reason. And how she got 2 larger children into the water together with the baby, I don't know. It's very hard to think about, and I don't think anybody know why more than that she was depressed, or she felt not very good. She had been put into a corner, if you could say that. Yeah.
Who has the 3-year-old now? Is it with the father or someone else at this point?
The father is living with a small child, and they are going okay, if you can say that. The child is still improving. She can stand up. She can not speak very good, but she understands most things.
Okay.
And she can eat and drink, and she has good physiotherapy treatment. She has good speech therapy, and the speech therapist says that words are coming.
Yeah. So I guess, and this is just me not knowing, but so there was brain damage maybe to the child because of all this as well?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And she has sequela, and she will have sequela for all her life.
Right.
But as you know, that the brain is kind of plastic, what do you call it, in especially in children, and up to their teenage years, they have a possibility of still improving. So, every time we see her, I met them last time at the 17th of May on our National Day, together with my family.
Oh.
And then I saw even more improvement. And
yeah, well, that's good that you're able to keep in contact with them and so forth. And you being a passerby, you just happenstance there, but you took action, and I think that's kind of the moral of your story. Is you saw something, you did something about it, you were willing to put yourself out there. And you want to talk about that a little bit for our listeners, because I know a lot of our CRNAs that listen would do that in the same manner, but you followed this through, and you're still in touch with the child. You want to talk a little bit about that?
The main thing is trying to do something and trying to alarm the right emergency medical control center or rescue center or whatever thing you have in your country, to give an emergency call and to shout out for help in the area. Like I got help from a lady there, and don't be afraid of doing wrong. In Europe, we have heard about the laws in the United States, but I understand you have this Good Samaritan law. So it's a good idea to try to do something right and call the emergency centers and get some advice in addition to get some resources out. So I think that's also, and also don't think complicated. Think simple first, and then you can put on things. If I'm there, I can a little more about airways. If other persons are there, they can do a little more about rescuing. And in other places, it could be a little more about fire or something. So don't be afraid of doing thing wrong. Start to try to help, shout out in the area, and get someone to help you, and get advices from the rescue centers.
Now, Olaf, while we have you here, let's talk a little bit about nurse anesthesia practice in Norway and maybe how it compares to the United States. I know we were talking before we started taping, and y'all are just called nurse anesthetist there, or NA, but y'all don't use the initials NA because we were talking about how we use CRNA. You're just nurse anesthetist, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
And how do you practice in your facilities? Are you by yourself, or there's anesthesiology doctors, is what I've heard you call them? And how many do they supervise rooms? How does your practice work in Norway?
I think like today is a good example. We have 3 short operations in general anesthesia. I was working at the theater. I had a colleague who helped me and my colleagues on another theater. So we one nurse anesthetist on my theater, and one on the neighbor, and one going in between, helping us with lunch and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also one anesthesiologist having the responsibility for 2 or 3 theaters.
Okay, so it sounds like it's similar to the United States.
Yeah, so I mean that's a standard practice, or if you say that. And if it was like a more complicated situation, there would be one nurse anesthetist and one anesthesiologist on each theater.
Mm-hmm.
But usually the anesthesiologist, they have a responsibility for 2 theaters.
2. So
Yeah.
it's usually 1 to 2 for most of the time. Here we can have 1 to 4, 1 to 5, 1 to 6, but for traditionally it's 1 to 2. So how big is your facility, your hospital? How many beds in your hospital, in the whole hospital?
The administration have thrown out the beds, so it's more day surgery and so on. But we are a small university hospital. We did have about 500 beds.
Okay.
And it has been a little less than that. I think we have some 25 places where we give anesthesia. So 25 theaters, and at the X-ray department, or some out places like could be giving radiation. Yes, and also participating in emergencies in the hospital, like trauma teams or something like that. So, so let's say that we on an ordinary day we have 30 places where we work.
Now, do you have nurse anesthesia students there also? Are you affiliated with the academic institution?
Yes, we have the local university have an education of nurse anesthetist that has been a part of a master degree program for the last 5 years, 7 years perhaps. And the students are coming to our university hospital, and they also have some time at the local hospitals.
Okay. Now, you said that you graduated in 1979 at Christmas, and you went to school for 18 months. What are the programs like there now? Have they gone to a longer period of time, or are they still 18 months?
If you look at the master degree program, it's a standard program that is for 2 years after the bachelor.
Okay. Yes. Similar.
And as my colleague Rita talked about in the Congress, in IFNA Congress, we also want them to have a year practice after the bachelor before they start at the anesthesia nursing program. And we have got backup from that from the IFNA organization.
Mm-hmm. Sounds very,
Very
similar to
similar.
United
Yeah.
States practice.
But we're a doctorate program now, right? Pierce?
Well, yeah, starting this
starting
year,
this year, yeah.
everybody who goes in will have to come out with the doctorate going forward.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
look what's on you. It might be on your horizon out there, Olaf.
We have some PhD students in some of these specialties like intensive care nurse, and we are hoping to have that in the anesthesia program. So we're working on that. And we are working with also a couple of the other nurse and specialist programs in the context of the master program.
Well, Sharon, I think this has been an excellent show. Olaf, anything you'd like to wrap up with to maybe tell our listeners in the United States? Of course, we're all around the world, aren't we, Sharon? I can't remember how many countries we're in now.
125 countries we're downloaded
countries.
in.
So anything you'd like to close on as we kind of wrap this one up?
In my lecture, I sent an updated lecture to you just some minutes ago, and that you can use if you want. And there is some references, and there is also some links. These links are mostly in Norwegian, but they can still say a little about our work in situations like this. So, I mean, for both those who are studying and those who are not studying, they can find things in my PDF lecture that I sent to you. If you want to put that out, that could be okay.
Great. We will definitely link that in the show notes. And Olaf, we really want to thank you for being on the show today. One of the things that stuck out to me as I kind of went through your lecture, and not being an anesthetist, for me, I take a completely different view of all of the folks that we interview and talk to on the show. But the one thing that stuck out to me, well, actually there were two things. One, you took action, and you had something in your lecture, and you put down here, it's all about caring for others. And that's what you did, and I think that's what our CRNAs do out there. You're nurses by background. Nurses are caring by background, and you're also the smartest people that I know, and you're willing to put yourself out there. And I think that's just a testament to you, who you are. And obviously, this little girl is alive today because you took an action and you were able to help save her life. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Sharon, I think it's a wrap.
I think so.
Well, Sharon, you want to close us today?
No, I want you to. Don't mess me up.
Oh, I love doing that to you. Well, we want to thank our listeners for listening to Beyond the Mask with Jeremy Stanley and
Sharon Pierce.
If you like our show and you want to help us grow, Sharon, how can they help us grow?
Well, the best way to help us grow is to leave us a review, but make it
positive. As we all know, there's enough negativity in this world for sure.
Absolutely. Tell all of your friends, share us on social media, and show us some love.
That's right. That's right. Because, we're in the top 50 medical podcasts consistently. We're number one in the CRNA world of podcasts in the United States. We're very proud of that. And Sharon, hopefully one day we'll be number one overall, right?
Absolutely. We're on our way.
All right. Until next time.
It's a wrap.
As a CRNA, you spend years preparing yourself for this career, so we don't want to see you lose out on any of the income you've worked so hard to earn. The best way to protect yourself and give you the confidence that a major life event won't disrupt your financial future is through disability insurance. We've known disability income specialist Robert Smith for many years and have seen the work he's done with nearly 2,000 CRNAs over multiple decades. He can help identify any gaps in your existing coverage and fill those gaps by finding the best value on a policy. Contact Robert and let him know you heard about him on our podcast. Send him an email at rsmithjr@financialguide.com. That's rsmithjr@financialguide.com. Or call him at 504-394-6557. Protect your greatest asset as a CRNA, yourself and your ability to earn a living by adding disability insurance to your financial plan. Today's show is brought to you by the folks at CRNA Financial Planning, an independent consulting firm that offers financial planning services exclusively to CRNAs and their families. From planning for a child's future college expenses to building a predictable income stream in retirement, the firm is committed to offering you comprehensive financial services, customized to fit your unique needs and objectives. If you have questions about your financial future, get them answered. Call the team at 855-304-3748. That's 855-304-3748. Or go online to crnafinancialplanning.com.
Hi, this is Jackie Rolls, President of the International Federation of Nurse Anesthetists and President and founder of Our Hearts, Your Hands, a global anesthesia support community that takes donations to allow nurse anesthetists in low and middle income countries to go to educational programs, buy equipment, or textbooks. Your donations are tax deductible, and we would appreciate your support.
OSA EMR is a free anesthesia EMR developed by CRNAs that you can download and use on an iPad. Our nonprofit mission is to make sure that solo and small practice CRNAs can digitally record their anesthetics. To learn more, visit osaemr.com to download and consider donating to our cause. Remember, for CRNAs, data is destiny.
Be sure to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and anywhere you like to listen to shows. Also be sure to check out BeyondTheMaskPodcast.com. Each episode is posted there with a corresponding blog post, and we timestamp important parts of the episode to help you quickly get to the content you're looking for. Also check out the special series section on the site. You can follow along and catch up on the CRNA History Series, episodes specifically about political conversations in the industry, or try the CRNA Personal Finance Series. It's all on BeyondTheMaskPodcast.com. And if you have a question for the show or want to be a guest, or even suggest a particular topic, fill out the contact form on the site or send an email directly to us at info@BeyondTheMaskPodcast.com. And lastly, let's take the conversation social. Check out our Beyond the Mask podcast Facebook page and Facebook group.